Hi, boys and girls. This is Greg Franklin back again with the final chapter of Hank the Cowdog. It's a Dog's Life. Chapter 12, The End Ends Happily After All. The dog catcher must have been pretty unhappy when he pulled up to the dog's pen and found his old pal Ralph sitting in death row. As I dashed off across the pasture, I heard him squall and beller. Then he jumped into his pickup, spun the tires, and came after me. I had supposed he would follow the road, see, and that would give me a little advantage and a head start. Nope. He came right behind me, and off he went across the pasture. I ducked under a barbed wire fence and thought that would slow him down since he would have to hunt for a gate. Nope. He built a new gate just by George, rammed it, and drove right through it. Then I came to a draw that ran through the pasture. It was kind of a steep on both sides and bumpy in the middle, and I figured that would slow him down. Nope. Darn near tore the axles off his pickup, but he made it through and kept on coming. And then he started shooting, that's right. Had a pistol out the left window, drove with one hand and fired with the other. That seems a little radical, him shooting at me on the outskirts of town, until you stop and remember that he still thought I had hydrophobia. And then it seems a little radical. It appeared to me my best lick was to get over the highway. Surely if I got around cars and people, that nutty dog catcher would hold his fire. Then all I'd have to worry about would be him running over me with his pickup. So I changed course and headed west and struck the highway right in front of Waterhole 83, the place where Loper and Slim bought their soda pop and chewing tobacco. I'd been there a time or two. Sure enough, once I got around the highway, Jimmy Joe had to stop and put away his artillery. I dashed across, a step or two ahead of a semi-truck, and made a run for the waterhole. I went around the back side just as Jimmy Joe roared into the parking lot. He screeched his tires and followed. My plan at this point was to run around the waterhole until Jimmy Joe ran out of gas, but when I came around the south side, I saw a familiar faded red pickup sitting out front. Just as Slim opened his door and touched the ground with a booted spur, or a spurred boot, I guess I should say, I dived in and hit the floorboard. Where? Good grief, it's you again. There wasn't a great deal of warmth in Slim's statement. Good grief, it's you again. Sort of recognized the basic facts of the situation, but was a long distance, emotionally speaking, from by golly, Hank, it's great to see you again. But of course, you have to remember that I had left the ranch under the shadow of controversy, so to speak. Well, I whapped my tail on the floorboard and gave him one of my most pitiful looks. I couldn't tell if it was working or not, and just then the dog catcher came roaring through the parking lot and screeched to a halt. I made my best attempt to melt into the floor mat. I was, by George, hugging the floor. Say, Jimmy Joe yelled, you see a sorry-looking dog go running through here? Slim shot me a glance, slammed the door, and walked over to the other pickup. Yeah? Where'd he go? Slim leaned his elbow on the pickup and pointed up to the north. See that milk truck there? Says Nolan's Dairy? Right, yeah, okay, thanks. I'll run him down. And he roared off after the milk truck. Slim went into the waterhole and came out with a sack of sunflower seeds. He got in and looked down at me. I didn't lie to him. He asked if I had seen a sorry-looking dog, and I said yes. I didn't say you were in that milk truck. Didn't even mean to suggest it. He just jumped to conclusions. He gave me a wink, and we headed south towards the ranch. After we'd gone a few miles, I worked up the courage to sit in the seat and, let the wind blow across my ears. Always did enjoy that. When we crossed the cattle guard that put us back on the ranch, Slim pushed his hat back on his head, looked at me and sighed. Hank, Sally Mae is going to scalp me when she finds out I brought you back out here. In fact, he slammed on the brakes and opened the door, why don't you walk in to headquarters alone? I've got enough trouble without being associated with your lousy record. Lousy record? I couldn't believe my ears. What about all those long nights on patrol, all the years? Oh, well. I jumped out into the road. Slim didn't drive off right away, but sat there looking at me. He even grinned. Hank, I'm kind of glad you're back, and I'll be darned if I can find a reason for it. You're as dumb as any dog I ever met, and you cause more trouble around here than you're worth." All at once he started laughing, broke into the house, and ate the T-bone steaks right off the table. "You sorry devil. We should have shot you while you were mad. Should have shot you while we were mad." He shook his head. "See you at the house, old pup." As he drove away, well, what can you say about the kind of welcome home? On the one hand, I think Slim meant every word he said. On the other hand, his words weren't entirely flattering, so there you are. He'd let me out on the country road just north and west of the house, right there by Spook Canyon, where the road runs through the horse pasture. I started to the house and ran into the horses. Must have been 12 of them right there in a bunch. I was feeling pretty good. I mean, who wouldn't? I had survived a case of soap hydrophobia. I had escaped from a cell on death row, and I had smuggled my bad self out of town, just one step ahead of the posse. And I was home again. Shucks, it was a great day. I was full of vinegar and oil and the other spices of life. I wanted to run and play and rejoice and just by George tell everybody that it was great to be alive and be home. So I marched up to the horses, thought it might be fun to put a little demonstration of Cowdog skills, round 'em up into a bunch, head 'em down towards the corral, stop, loose herd 'em. In other words, a little practice run just for the pure fun of it. "All right, you crowbaits," the chief executive is back on the ranch. "Form up into a group and move out to the corrals and stand by for further orders." They formed up into a group, and all right, and they went in the wrong direction. Instead of heading down towards the corrals, the scoundrels came running towards me. I retreated a couple of steps, and they kept on coming. I broke into a run, and they kept on coming. I ran all the way to the corral with them horses right on my tail, kicking and bucking and snorting, which just goes to show that we cowdogs have many tricks in our bags. Oftentimes, the best way to move horses into a corral is to make them think you want to drive them there, see? Then let them drive you. We call this reverse psychology and use it a lot, especially on horses because they're very ornery and stubborn and willful and dangerous, and I never did get much pleasure out of messing with a bunch of stupid horses. But it was still a great day, so good that even horses couldn't mess it up. I marched through the corrals, noticed there were a couple of steers in the sick pen, so I made my rounds there, got them up on their feet, steered them, checked their noses and eyes and other technical medical stuff that most ordinary readers wouldn't understand. Well, just for an example, I had a steer once that had ear drupus, red eye stochosis, and dry nose neurosis. Handling heavy technical terms is something good Cowdog does every day, but as I say, we don't expect the ordinary reader. I think I've already covered this. After I made my hospital rounds, I went to paddling through the corrals, feeling like a million, when all of a sudden I saw something up ahead that caught my eye. There was a stock tank up ahead, right there in the fence line between the alley and the side lot. Pete the barn cat was perched up on the edge of the tank, all bunched up in such a way that he had all four paws resting on a very small ledge. That's something a cat can do. It's a balancing trick that doesn't require any brains. His tail was high in the air, flicking back and forth in a slow rhythm. He was looking into the water and, get this, talking to someone. That's right. Well, naturally, I had to postpone his daily whipping so I could listen. "Oh, you're so handsome. My heavens, my stars, my goodness, my gracious, my gravy, my gosh. You're the best looking cat. I'm inclined to think that I'm in love with you, dear. Can you see? Can you hear my heart beating and pounding and thumping and sounding? The incredible love that I feel for myself. I can hardly explain it. It hurts like a bayonet, this incredible love that I feel for myself. It's a gold as a carrot. I'm not sure I can bear it, this incredible love that I feel for myself. I see in reflections in every direction the incredible love that I feel for myself. Dear cat, you're so handsome. You're worth a king's ransom. Oh, Pete, I'm in love with yourself. If you recall, I'd spent several hours on patrol in the alleys of Twitchell, Texas. But all that time I hadn't encountered garbage to compare with this. But it confirmed what I had always said about cats. They may not be the smartest animals in the world, but they sure are the dumbest. Well, Pete Pie was so busy saying love poems to himself that he didn't hear me sneaking up behind him. And moments later, I enjoyed one of the greatest honors of my career. While Pete was poised on the edge of the tank, looking at his reflection in the water, I slipped up behind him, slapped him across the back with a paw, and sent him flying into the stock tank. And you know, Pete hates water worse than sin. It was a delicious moment for me, watching him crawl out wet and mussed, while at the same time remembering the trouble he had caused me with the fraud about the end of the world. There you go, cat. Just a little reminder that the head of ranch security is back. Take note and beware. I left the cat sputtering and spitting and went on through the corrals, through the front lot, past the saddle shed, and on toward the gas tanks. There in the shade of the big Chinese elms, I saw Drover. He was crouched low to the ground, stalking a cricket. He heard me coming and looked up. Oh boy, Hank's back. He started jumping up and down. Gosh, I'm glad to see you. The nights are awful scary while you were gone. Pretty bad, eh? Just awful. The first night you were gone, the coons broke into the feed barn, and the second night a coyote came right up to the house, and he howled, Hank, and called me nasty names. Did, huh? What'd you do? Oh, Drover looked up at the sky. I barked at him from the machine shed. I barked at him once or twice. I intended to bark at him once or twice. Maybe I didn't bark at all, but my bad leg was giving me trouble, Hank, and I got the picture, son. In other words, while I was gone, things went to pot, rot, rack, and ruin. Well, they sure went to pot and rack, and maybe to rot and ruin, too. I guess you're right, Hank. Just as I suspected. Well, Drover, there's an important lesson about life to be learned from all this. His eyes widened and waited for the lesson. It was on the tip of my tongue just a second ago. I paced back and forth, probing my memory. And it was a very, very important lesson. I probed deeper. But at the moment, I can't remember what it was. Gosh, that's too bad. But we can take comfort knowing there are important lessons to be learned. And in the meantime, let's get some sleep. Because Drover, I glanced over both shoulders and dropped my voice to a whisper. Tonight will be another night. The evil forces will rise again from the ground, and we will be there to oppose them. And that's another episode of Hank the Cowdog by John Erickson, book number 3. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves, doing a lot of reading. Take care.